Hello, everyone. Let's listen to the story Little Red Riding Hood. Little Red Riding Hood by Kaylee M. Lee. There was once a little girl who lived with her mother in a cottage on the edge of the forest. Her grandmother made her a lovely red hood that the girl loved so much she wore it all the time. After a while, people forgot her name and just called her Little Red Riding Hood. When the grandmother fell ill, Little Red Riding Hood's mother packed a basket filled with delicious treats and sent her daughter to deliver it. Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother lived in a cottage in the forest. Before she left, Little Red's mother warned her not to talk to strangers on the way. As she walked through the forest, Little Red Riding Hood was a little bit lonely. I wish I had someone to talk to, she thought. Almost as soon as the thought crossed her mind, a wolf appeared in a clearing. Little Red was so happy to see anyone that she forgot her mother's warning. The wolf was not lonely. He was hungry. He saw the little girl and thought she looked delicious. But he was a tricky old wolf, so he didn't eat her up right away.
"Hello, little girl," said the wolf. "What are you doing all alone in the forest?"
I am bringing a basket of treats to my grandmother. She is not feeling well, Little Red replied. That was great news to the wolf. If he was careful, he could get 2 meals today.
"And where does your grandmother live?" he asked slyly.
Not knowing that a wolf is the absolute last person anyone should talk to, Little Red Riding Hood chattered on and on about her grandmother's house and where it was and how she would always knock on the door and her grandmother would just tell her to come on in. Little Red talked and talked. She talked so much she didn't notice when the wolf disappeared off into the forest. While the wolf raced to her grandmother's house, Little Red Riding Hood stopped along the path to pick a few flowers. They were very pretty, and she thought they might help her grandmother feel better. When the wolf arrived at the little cottage, he knocked on the door and used his sweetest voice to call out, "Oh, grandmother, it's Little Red Riding Hood. I brought you a basket of delicious treats." Grandmother replied from inside the house, "The door is unlocked. Come on in, my dear." When the wolf rushed inside, he found Grandmother lying in bed and he gobbled her up in one bite. Then he put on Grandmother's extra cap and her glasses and climbed into her bed. In a few minutes, Little Red Riding Hood came to the cottage. She knocked on the door and called out, "Oh, Grandmother, it's Little Red Riding Hood. I brought you a basket of delicious treats." The wolf, trying very much to sound like an old lady, replied, "The door is unlocked. Come on in, my dear." Little Red Riding Hood walked slowly over to her grandmother's bed. "Grandmother, you look a little different. What big arms you have." "All the better to hug you with, my dear," the wolf replied. But grandmother, what big eyes you have! All the better to see you with, my dear, the wolf replied. Grandmother, what big ears you have! All the better to hear you with, my dear, the wolf replied.
Oh, grandmother, what big teeth you have! All the better to eat you up, the wolf snarled. And with that, the wolf jumped out of the bed and chased Little Red Riding Hood around the room.
The little girl screamed as loud as she could, and two hunters who were nearby rushed to the cottage. They saw the wolf chasing her and killed it. Little Red Riding Hood told them that she thought the wolf had eaten her grandmother. Carefully, they cut the wolf open and found grandmother inside, safe and sound. Little Red Riding Hood shared the treats from her basket with grandmother and the two hunters. She learned an important lesson and never talked to strangers again. The end. Okay, boys and girls, let's answer some questions. Number 1, who are the characters in the story? Number 2, why did the wolf dress up like grandmother? And number 3, what do you think Little Red Riding Hood learned by the end of the story? That's all for now. See you guys later.